Hey guys, tonight we're going to lace up our invisible running shoes, or perhaps better yet, we're going to kick them off entirely. We're traveling back to an age of empires so vast they would dwarf most modern nations, an age where communication was not measured in microseconds of data, but in the raw, relentless pounding of human feet. Imagine covering over 150 miles on foot in scorching heat or biting cold, across mountains and deserts, without the comfort of socks or even modern shoes. Tonight, we're delving into the astonishing tale of the Persian postman who could run 150 miles without socks. You probably wouldn't survive 10 minutes without a blister and a frantic call for a taxi. But for these legendary figures, it was just another day at the office. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you're feeling chatty, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you all are tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand at the edge of the sprawling Achaemenid Empire. Circa 500 BCE to your east, the sun rises over the distant plains of India. To your west, it dips towards the shores of the Aegean Sea. This empire, founded by Cyrus the Great and expanded by Darius I, was truly immense, stretching from modern-day Greece and Egypt in the west to parts of Central Asia and India in the east. Imagine trying to govern, communicate with, and control such a colossal dominion with anything less than lightning speed. It would be like running a global corporation with carrier pigeons. The sheer vastness of this empire presented an unprecedented logistical challenge for its rulers. How do you send orders from the imperial capital of Susa or Persepolis to distant satraps governors in Egypt or Lydia? How do you receive intelligence from far-flung provinces about rebellions, harvests, or troop movements? Without rapid communication, such an empire was simply unmanageable, a collection of disparate territories rather than a unified power. This was a centralized government's ultimate challenge. Predating any form of electronic or even mechanical communication, mainstream historical fact, the Achaemenid Empire was one of the largest empires in ancient history, encompassing diverse peoples and vast geographical distances. Its very existence depended on an efficient system of communication, which they solved with their famous royal postal service. This system was so legendary that even the Greek historian Herodotus, often critical of the Persians, praised its speed and reliability. This need for speed wasn't just about administrative efficiency. It was about raw power. A message reporting a rebellion could arrive in the capital in days, allowing for swift military response rather than weeks or months, by which time the uprising might have gained irreversible momentum. News of an impending invasion could be sent ahead, giving garrisons precious time to prepare. The postman wasn't just delivering mail, it was delivering imperial control, ensuring the emperor's will, quite literally, spanned continents. A quirky tidbit. Imagine trying to explain the concept of a speeding ticket to a Persian postman. Officer, I'm literally saving an empire here. My delivery time is crucial. You expect me to slow down because of a camel crossing? Their dedication to speed was absolute, a matter of national security and imperial integrity. They likely saw traffic laws as a suggestion, not a mandate. Historians still argue whether the primary motivation for creating such an elaborate and physically demanding postal system was solely for military and administrative control, or if it also served to foster a sense of unity and shared identity across the diverse provinces of the empire. Was it about iron-fisted rule or clever nation-building through communication? It was likely a blend of both, with the practical benefits of control being paramount. Regardless, the very scale of the Achaemenid Empire necessitated a human-powered communication network that pushed the limits of endurance, creating the legendary postman who ran, often, without socks. The vastness of the Achaemenid Empire, which we just explored, meant that simply having fast runners wasn't enough. They needed an infrastructure, a dedicated path to facilitate their superhuman feats of speed. This brings us to the Royal Roads infrastructure, an engineering marvel that supported the legendary ancient postal system. This wasn't just a dirt, Track. It was a carefully constructed artery of empire, designed for efficiency and speed. Imagine a network of well-maintained roads stretching for thousands of miles, specifically designed to connect the furthest reaches of the empire. The most famous of these was the Royal Road, primarily connecting Susa, one of the Persian capitals, to Sardis, a major city in western Anatolia, near the Aegean Sea. A staggering distance of over 1,600 miles, about 2,500 kilometers. This road wasn't built for pleasure cruises. It was a high-speed highway for imperial communication, a mainstream historical fact. Herodotus described the Royal Road as having royal stations relay posts spaced at regular intervals, typically a day's journey, apart, each equipped with fresh horses and a fresh courier. This meticulous planning allowed messages to be passed from one runner or rider to the next, ensuring continuous rapid transmission without a single individual having to complete the entire grueling distance. This relay system was key to their incredible speed. The infrastructure itself was robust. While not paved in asphalt like modern roads, sections were often graveled, cleared of obstructions, and sometimes even had stone markers indicating distances. Bridges were built over rivers, and ferries provided crossings where necessary. These weren't haphazard trails. They were engineered for purpose, maintained by imperial decree, and guarded by soldiers. It was like their version of the Autobahn. But with more sand and fewer traffic jams, the strategic placement of these relay posts was crucial. By establishing stations at 15 to 20 mile intervals, or around 25 to 30 kilometers, the Persians ensured that a message could travel an astonishing distance in a relatively short time. A courier would run their segment at maximum speed, hand off the message to a fresh counterpart, and the process would repeat. This meant the message was fast, even if no single postman ran the entire 1,600 miles. A quirky tidbit. Imagine the scene at a relay post. A weary, dust-covered courier sprints in, perhaps looking more like a modern ultra-marathoner at the finish line. Before they can even catch their breath, they're passing a small scroll or tablet to a fresh, eager counterpart, ready to burst off down the road. There might have been little time for pleasantries, just a quick exchange of vital information. It was an ancient version of a NASCAR pit stop, but with human athletes instead of roaring engines. Historians still argue whether the Royal Road network was primarily built for the swift movement of goods and armies, with the postal service as a secondary benefit, or if rapid communication itself was the primary driver for such extensive construction. Was it logistics or intelligence that inspired this monumental undertaking? It was likely a sophisticated blend, a road that could move troops and supplies quickly would naturally also be ideal for messages. Regardless, this advanced infrastructure was the unsung hero behind the legendary speed of the Persian Postman, allowing imperial orders and intelligence to race across continents, connecting the vastness of the Achaemenid Empire. So, the Royal Road provided the physical backbone, but how exactly did the messages, our legendary postmen, travel with such astonishing speed? This brings us to the core mechanism, the Angaryon, the Persian post. This wasn't just a delivery service. It was a highly disciplined, state-controlled relay system of couriers, designed for one purpose above all: lightning-fast communication across the vast Persian Empire. The word Angaryon itself comes from the Greek angaros, likely derived from the Persian word for royal courier. This system operated on a relay principle, similar to a modern express mail service, but powered entirely by human and horse endurance. Messages were passed from one courier to the next at strategically placed stations along the Royal Road. Each courier was responsible for a specific segment of the route, ensuring that fresh legs and tireless effort were constantly applied to the message's journey. A mainstream historical fact, Herodotus, in his histories, famously described the efficiency of the Angaryon. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds. This phrase, often associated with modern postal services, actually originates from his description of the Persian post, highlighting its legendary reliability and dedication to speed. This wasn't just advertising. It was a well-earned reputation. Imagine. The chain. A critical dispatch begins at the imperial court. It's handed to the first courier, who often on horseback for longer, less rugged stretches, or on foot for shorter, more challenging segments, races to the nearest relay station. There a fresh courier, and often a fresh horse, would be waiting, ready to take the message and immediately sprint off. This handoff would repeat dozens of times across the empire's breadth, ensuring the message traveled continuously, day and night. The system was so efficient that a message could travel the entire 1,600-mile length of the royal road in as little as 7 days, a feat that would have taken weeks or even months for a regular traveler. This incredible speed was vital for maintaining control over the empire, allowing the great king to react swiftly to rebellions, communicate battle plans, or distribute crucial decrees. The couriers were the empire's nervous system, ensuring its rapid reflexes. A quirky tidbit. It said that couriers would shout the message to the next runner if the handoff needed to be exceptionally fast, rather than pausing to pass a physical scroll. Imagine two athletes, covered in dust, panting as one yells crucial intelligence to the other mid-stride. The Lydians are attacking. Pass it on. The Lydians are attacking. This desperate, high-stakes exchange underscores the urgency and precision of the system. Historians still argue whether the Angarion primarily relied on mounted couriers, who changed horses frequently, or if dedicated footrunners like our postmen played a more significant role, especially in rougher terrains or for particularly urgent dispatches. Was it a horse-powered system with human backups, or a blend where footrunners specialized in certain routes? It was likely a combination, adapting to terrain and urgency. Regardless, the Angarion, with its relentless relay system, was a marvel of ancient logistics, ensuring that imperial messages and the will of the great king were delivered with a speed that astonished the ancient world, often thanks to the tireless, secless efforts of its human components. The Angarians' incredible speed wasn't just about horses and infrastructure. It was fundamentally about the human element. This brings us to the couriers' training. Physicality. These weren't just ordinary men. They were elite athletes, subjected to rigorous preparation to endure extreme physical feats. Our postman, who could run 150 miles without socks, was the product of a system designed to push human endurance to its absolute limit. Imagine a training regimen that would make a modern marathoner wince. Persian couriers, especially the foot-based ones, would have undergone intense physical conditioning from a young age. This would have included long-distance running, often carrying light loads to build stamina, and practicing across varied terrain from the scorching plains to rocky mountain passes. Their bodies were their most important tools, honed into lean, efficient machines capable of sustained high-speed effort. A mainstream historical fact, ancient Greek sources, like Xenophon, describe the Persians as valuing physical fitness, especially for military and administrative roles. Elite Persian youth, particularly those destined for service to the great king, would have been trained in running, riding, and other athletic pursuits. The couriers were likely drawn from the ranks of these highly conditioned individuals, making them true athletes of their era. Their training wouldn't just be about raw speed and stamina. It would also involve developing incredible mental fortitude. Running for hours, sometimes days, through desolate landscapes, exposed to the elements, required immense psychological resilience. They had to push past pain, fatigue, and the loneliness of the long-distance journey. Think of it as ancient mindfulness. But with blisters and dehydration, this physical conditioning would have also involved building incredible resilience in their feet. For a postman running without socks over long distances, their soles would need to become incredibly toughened, calloused, and resistant to injury. This is a process that takes years, starting from childhood, gradually adapting the feet to the rigors of constant, unprotected impact with varied terrain. A quirky tidbit. Imagine a Persian courier trying to explain his training to a modern runner. You wear cushions on your feet? And what are these energy gels? My energy gel is a handful of dates and a strong will not to displease the emperor. Their simplicity of gear contrasted sharply with the extreme demands placed on their bodies. They were the ultimate minimalist runners, long before it became a trendy fitness philosophy. Historians still argue whether the training for these couriers was a formalized, state-sponsored program, akin to a military academy, or a more informal, apprenticeship-based system within specific communities or families known for their running prowess. Was it a national athletic program, or a localized tradition? It was likely a blend, with the most elite runners being identified and cultivated for imperial service. Regardless, the exceptional physicality of the Persian Postman was no accident. It was the result of a lifetime of deliberate, grueling training, turning human bodies into the fastest communication network of the ancient world to sustain their incredible physical feats. The Persian Postmen needed more than just rigorous training. They required precise fueling. This brings us to their diet and sustenance on the run. Forget elaborate banquet spreads. These couriers lived on a practical, high-energy regimen designed for optimal endurance and minimal weight. A true, ancient precursor to sports nutrition. Imagine preparing for a 150-mile run across varied terrain. Your food would need to be lightweight, non-perishable, and packed with energy. Persian couriers would likely have carried simple yet nutrient-dense provisions. Dates, dried figs, and nuts would have provided concentrated sugars and fats for quick energy and sustained release. Dried meat like jerky would offer protein for muscle repair and satiety. Grains, perhaps in the form of flatbread or parched barley, to provide complex carbohydrates. A mainstream historical fact, ancient Persian cuisine emphasized practical and nutritious foods, especially for those on the move. Dates and dried fruits were staples, known for their energy content and long shelf life. This practical approach to sustenance was essential for supporting a military and administrative machine that relied on rapid movement and endurance. Whether of armies or individual couriers, water, of course, was paramount. Couriers would have relied on a network of pre-established water sources along their route's wells, cisterns, or even small oasis stops. They would carry water in lightweight leather or ceramic containers, replenishing at each station. Dehydration, in the arid landscapes of the Persian Empire, would have been a constant. Life-threatening concern, making efficient hydration a top priority. Their diet wasn't about culinary delight, it was about metabolic efficiency. Every calorie counted, every gram of food was weighed against the need for speed and endurance. They weren't just eating, they were fueling a human engine, ensuring their bodies had the sustained energy to cover vast distances without faltering. A quirky tidbit: imagine a modern sports nutritionist trying to analyze the Persian couriers' diet. So, no protein shakes, no electrolyte drinks, just ... dates and jerky. Remarkable. But I'd recommend a good carb-loading strategy before the next imperial dispatch. Their ancient wisdom of simple energy-dense foods allowed them to perform at levels that would impress even today's ultra-marathoners. They were proof that sometimes less is more, especially when you're running for an empire. Historians still argue whether the provision of food and water for these couriers was meticulously standardized at every relay station, or if couriers were expected to carry a significant portion of their own provisions, supplementing as needed. Was it a fully supported state enterprise, or did individual couriers have to be more self-sufficient? It was likely a blend, with key provisions available at stations, but couriers still needing to manage their own immediate sustenance. Regardless, the ability of the Persian postman to cover 150 miles without socks was inextricably linked to a simple, yet highly effective, diet and hydration strategy that fueled their extraordinary endurance. Beyond sustenance, the gear of the Persian postman was as minimalist as their diet was practical. This brings us to clothing and footwear. Minimalist. Forget the protective, specialized athletic wear of today. These couriers embraced a simplicity born of necessity, highlighting the raw resilience of the human body when pushed to its limits. Running 150 miles without socks wasn't just a detail, it was a fundamental aspect of their rugged, unencumbered speed. Imagine preparing for a long, demanding run. You'd likely wear light, breathable clothing, designed for freedom of movement. Persian couriers would have worn simple tunics or cloaks, typically made of linen or wool, which would have offered some protection from the sun and elements without adding unnecessary bulk. These garments would be loose-fitting, allowing for airflow, and minimizing chafing. Their aesthetic was one of pure function over fashion. The most striking aspect, of course, was the absence of socks and often mensalized footwear. While some couriers might have worn simple sandals or light leather coverings, many accounts suggest a preference for minimal foot protection, or even going entirely barefoot for certain stretches. This wasn't because they couldn't invent socks. Ancient Egyptians had them, after all. It was likely a deliberate choice for several reasons: avoiding blisters from ill-fitting fabric, maximizing proprioception, the sense of foot placement on varied terrain, and perhaps a cultural emphasis on hardiness. A mainstream historical fact: military and athletic practices in ancient civilizations often involve minimal footwear or even bare feet, particularly for long-distance running or combat. This emphasized hardening the body and building natural resilience, rather than relying on external padding. The Roman legionaries, for example, were known for their marching endurance in simple, open sandals. The Persian postman's sockless feet was part of a broader, ancient tradition of bodily toughening, running barefoot or with minimal sandals across hundreds of miles, over diverse terrain, including rocky paths, sandy plains, and potentially muddy. Stretches would have required incredibly tough, calloused feet. This level of foot conditioning would have been built up over years of training, gradually desensitizing the soles and strengthening the intrinsic foot muscles. It's the ultimate natural footwear, forged by constant impact. A quirky tidbit: imagine the arguments a modern podiatrist would have with a Persian courier. No socks? No arch support? You're going to destroy your feet? Here, try these orthotics. The ancient postman would probably just shrug, point to his perfectly conditioned, unblistered feet despite the mileage, and continue on his way. They were living proof that sometimes the best gear is no gear at all, just raw human adaptation. Historians still argue whether the choice of minimal footwear was purely practical, less chance of chafing, easier to clean, better grip on certain surfaces, or if it also carried a symbolic meaning of toughness and dedication to the imperial mission. Was it pragmatism or pride that drove the sockless run? It was likely a blend, with the practical advantages reinforcing a cultural ideal of rugged endurance. Regardless, the unencumbered feet of the Persian postmen were a hallmark of their legendary speed, a testament to raw human resilience in the face of incredible distances and demanding terrain. With their bodies conditioned, their diets optimized, and their gear minimalist, what was the driving force behind the Persian postman's relentless pace? It was all about speed and efficiency, a prioritized goal. For the Achaemenid Empire, rapid message delivery wasn't just a convenience. It was a cornerstone of governance, a tool of control, and a strategic advantage that literally held their vast dominion together. Imagine being the great King Darius, ruling an empire that spanned 3 continents. News of a distant rebellion, a new trade route opportunity, or a potential alliance needed to reach your ears and be acted upon with incredible swiftness. Delays could mean lost battles, missed opportunities, or the complete unraveling of a province. The speed of information was power, and the Persian postman was the embodiment of that power. A mainstream historical fact, the famous quote attributed to Herodotus: "There is nothing in the world that travels faster than these Persian couriers," encapsulates the ancient world's astonishment at the Angarians' efficiency. It wasn't merely fast for its time. It was genuinely groundbreaking, setting a standard for rapid communication that would not be surpassed for centuries, till the advent of steam-powered transportation. This efficiency was achieved through meticulous organization of the relay system. Each courier knew their segment of the road, the exact location of the next relay station, and their primary objective: to deliver the message as quickly, as humanly, or equinely possible. There was no dawdling, no side trips, just a relentless focus on forward momentum. Time was literally of the essence, and every second shaved off the delivery time was a win for the empire. The emphasis on speed extended beyond the runners themselves. The relay stations were well stocked and manned, ensuring fresh couriers and horses were always ready, minimizing handover times. Messages were likely kept concise to reduce transmission time, The entire system was a masterpiece of ancient logistics, all geared towards one overriding goal: the swiftest possible flow of imperial information. A quirky tidbit: imagine a Persian courier, mid-sprint, seeing a squirrel leisurely crossing the royal road. He'd probably think, look at that slacker. Doesn't he know there's an empire to maintain? Their single-minded dedication to speed would have made them appear almost superhuman, embodying the very concept of relentless forward progress. They were the original express delivery service, just with more grit and less cardboard packaging. Historians still argue whether the ultimate effectiveness of this speed truly prevented more rebellions or saved more battles than would have occurred otherwise. Did rapid communication always translate directly into imperial success, or were there other factors at play? It's a complex question, but the undeniable fact is that the Persians believed in it wholeheartedly. Regardless, the Persian postman's ability to run 150 miles without socks was a testament to a system that prioritized speed and efficiency above all else, ensuring that the great kings will travel faster than any news, any army, or any rumor. Throughout his vast dominion, even with their incredible training, optimized diets, minimalist gear, and a relentless focus on speed, the Persian postman faced formidable obstacles. This brings us to the challenges: terrain, weather, threats. The royal road might have been an engineering marvel, but it stretched across an unforgiving landscape, testing the limits of human endurance and courage. Imagine the sheer diversity of the environment these couriers traversed. From the arid, sun-baked plains of Mesopotamia, where temperatures could soar and water was scarce, to the dusty, wind-swept plateaus of Anatolia, and potentially through the rugged, snow-capped mountains of the Zagros Range. Each segment of the journey presented its own unique physical demands and dangers. A postman might start his segment sprinting through a fertile river valley and end it scrambling over loose rock in a desolate pass. Weather was an unpredictable and often brutal adversary. Scorching summer heat could lead to dehydration and heat stroke. Sudden sandstorms could blind and disorient a runner, obscuring the path and burying markers. In mountainous regions, heavy snowfall could block routes entirely, or freezing temperatures could pose a hypothermia risk. The famous quote about neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night was not an exaggeration. It was a testament to the fact that these couriers faced and overcame every meteorological challenge imaginable. Beyond nature, there were constant threats from both the wild and from hostile humans. Wild animals, wolves, bears, even the occasional big cat in certain regions could pose a danger, especially in more remote stretches. More concerning were human threats: bandits, renegade tribes, or even spies from rival empires who would seek to intercept vital imperial messages. The couriers often traveled alone or in small groups, making them vulnerable targets in vast, sparsely populated areas. A mainstream historical fact: despite the presence of relay stations and some imperial patrols, the royal road passed through diverse and often untamed territories. Couriers were indeed at risk from both natural hazards and human predation. Their dedication to completing their rounds swiftly implies that they likely moved with a sense of urgency, not just to maintain speed, but also for personal safety. Quirky tidbit: imagine a Persian postman. After narrowly escaping a pack of wolves and then a sandstorm, finally reaching the next relay station looking utterly disheveled. The next courier, completely fresh, might look at him and say, "Rough run? Here's the message. Try not to get eaten by anything on your way back, mate." Their tales of survival would surely have been legendary if they ever had time to tell them. Historians still argue whether the couriers were armed or if their primary defense was their speed and the element of surprise. Did they rely on imperial guards along specific segments, or were they expected to defend themselves? It was likely a varied approach, but the emphasis on speed suggests minimal armament. Regardless, the Persian postman, who could run 150 miles without socks, was not only an athlete of extraordinary endurance, but also a survivor, battling the brutal forces of nature and humanity to deliver the great king's messages across a truly challenging empire. Given the importance of their messages and the dangers of the road, ensuring the integrity of the imperial dispatch was paramount. This leads us to message security and trust. The Persian Empire couldn't afford leaks, tampering, or misdirection. Their postal system wasn't just about speed. It was about absolute reliability and the unshakable confidence in the courier, delivering exactly what was sent. Imagine vital imperial decrees, battle plans, or sensitive intelligence. These couldn't just be scrawled on an open piece of papyrus and handed over. Messages would have been carefully written, often on small clay tablets, though lighter materials like parchment or papyrus would also be used for speed, and sealed. The seals, typically cylinder seals bearing the emperor's or a high official's unique insignia, would be a critical security measure. Breaking the seal would immediately reveal tampering. A mainstream historical fact: cylinder seals were widely used across the ancient Near East, including by the Persians, for authenticating documents and securing goods. Each high-ranking official would have a unique seal, impressing it onto wet clay to create an unbroken signature. For important imperial messages, the scroll or tablet would be wrapped, tied, and then sealed with clay, ensuring that only the intended recipient or someone authorized to break the seal could access the contents. This was their ancient encryption. Beyond physical security, there was the immense element of trust. The couriers were privy to vital information, even if they couldn't read the sealed message. Their loyalty to the great king and the empire was absolute. Treachery would mean not just punishment for the individual, but potentially disaster for the state. This required a strict selection process and instilled a deep sense of duty. The relay system itself added a layer of security. Since no single courier carried the message for its entire journey, the risk of a single individual being compromised and revealing the full contents of a multi-stage dispatch was minimized. Each courier only knew their segment of the journey and handled a sealed packet. This need-to-know basis was an ingenious security protocol. A quirky tidbit: imagine a Persian courier, sweating and exhausted, reaching a relay station only to find the next courier is new and looks a bit shifty. He'd probably eye the fresh seal on the message packet with extra scrutiny. "Looks like a good seal, mate. Hope you don't accidentally drop it in the desert and then mysteriously acquire a new camel." The element of human trust, even with the physical seals, was always a crucial, unspoken factor. Historians still argue whether the strict loyalty of the couriers was primarily fostered by imperial propaganda and patriotic fervor, or by the severe punishments meted out for failure or treachery. Was it love for the empire or fear of the consequences? It was likely a blend of both, with the rigorous training instilling discipline and the prestige of the role reinforcing loyalty. Regardless, the Persian postman, running his 150 miles without socks, was not just a symbol of speed and endurance, but also a walking, breathing embodiment of trust and message security, a vital cog in the complex machinery of imperial power. Despite their incredible physical feats and the vital role they played, what was the standing of the Persian postman in society? This brings us to their social status and perception. While they were certainly admired for their speed and dedication, their role was somewhat unique, simultaneously revered for their service, yet often unseen in the daily life of the common citizen. They were the unsung heroes of the empire, rarely in the spotlight, but always essential. On one hand, the royal couriers were highly respected. They served the great king directly, a tremendous honor in a hierarchical society. Their physical prowess was legendary, celebrated by historians like Herodotus, and certainly known within the empire. To be chosen as a courier meant you were part of an elite, disciplined corps, essential to the functioning of the state. This bestowed upon them a certain prestige, especially within their own communities. A mainstream historical fact, the quote, attributed to Herodotus: "Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, or gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds," came a near mythological description of their dedication. This almost superhuman portrayal elevated their status in the popular imagination, painting them as tireless, unyielding servants of the empire, almost forces of nature themselves. However, their role was also somewhat anonymous. Or satraps, who had public profiles and wielded visible power, the courier's work was largely behind the scenes. They were fleeting figures, appearing at a relay station, handing off a message, and disappearing again. Their fame was in their collective reliability rather than individual celebrity. The common farmer might know of the royal post, but rarely know a specific postman. Their social standing would likely fall somewhere between a skilled artisan like a master craftsman and a lower-ranking military officer. They were not nobility, but they were certainly not common laborers. They possessed specialized, valuable skills and served a direct critical function for the imperial government, which would have afforded them a comfortable living and a degree of social mobility, especially for those who performed well over many years. A quirky tidbit. Imagine a Persian courier, after a grueling run, trying to tell his stories at a local tavern, and then I outran a sandstorm and delivered the message 2 hours early. The emperor owes me a raise in barley rations. His audience might nod politely, impressed, but then go back to gossiping about the local tax collector. Their heroism was often fleeting, absorbed into the larger narrative of imperial might. Historians still argue whether the high praise from Greek historians like Herodotus accurately reflects the internal Persian perception of these couriers, or if it's partly an external idealization of their efficiency. Were they truly revered within Persia as much as they were admired from outside? It's likely their internal status was practical and respected, if not always glamorous. Regardless, the Persian Postman, often running 150 miles without socks, is a unique figure in ancient society, a vital, unsung hero. Celebrated for his unparalleled speed and unwavering dedication to the grand machinery of empire. The ultimate justification for the Persian postman's incredible endurance and the vast infrastructure of the Narration lay in its profound impact on governance and war. This rapid communication network was more than just a convenience. It was a strategic weapon, a tool of absolute control that fundamentally shaped how the Achaemenid Empire maintained its colossal power and conducted its military campaigns. Imagine ruling an empire that stretched from the Nile to the Indus. The speed with which orders from the great king in Susa or Persepolis could reach a distant satrap in Egypt or a general on the border of India was critical. It allowed for centralized decision-making, swift responses to provincial unrest, and the coordinated movement of vast armies. Without the Narration, such a geographically dispersed empire would have inevitably fragmented under its own weight. A mainstream historical fact. The Narration allowed the Persian great king to govern his vast empire with a degree of centralized control unprecedented for its time. Orders could be issued, intelligence gathered, policies implemented across thousands of miles in a matter of days or weeks, rather than months. This meant a more responsive, efficient, and ultimately more stable imperial administration, a true advantage over less organized rivals. In times of war, the impact was even more direct and dramatic. Battle plans, troop movements, and critical intelligence could be transmitted rapidly between the king, his generals, and local garrisons. News of an enemy's advance, a successful siege, or a strategic defeat could be relayed with astonishing speed, enabling commanders to adapt their strategies or send reinforcements in time. This gave the Persian military a significant logistical and intelligence advantage over slower-moving adversaries. The very existence of such a rapid communication system also served as a psychological deterrent. Rebellions knew that news of their uprising would reach the capital swiftly, bringing a rapid and overwhelming imperial response. This omnipresent threat of immediate retaliation reinforced the great king's authority and discouraged provincial unrest. The postman was, in a sense, a silent, speedy enforcer of imperial will. A quirky tidbit. Imagine a Persian general receiving a crucial update via courier, dramatically tearing open the sealed message. He then immediately dispatches his own reply, perhaps instructing a flank maneuver or ordering a retreat, all within minutes. This rapid back-and-forth communication, while primitive by modern standards, would have been a technological marvel. To their enemies, enabling military agility that seemed almost magical, the enemy just changed their tactics. How did the king know so fast? Historians still argue whether the Angarion was more impactful for internal administrative control or for external military dominance. Did it prevent more internal rebellions or win more foreign wars? Most likely crucial for both. The ability to govern effectively and wage war successfully are deeply intertwined in imperial power. Regardless, the relentless speed and reliability of the Persian Postman, running 150 miles without socks, were not just feats of individual endurance. They were fundamental pillars of the Achaemenid Empire's unprecedented power and lasting influence over the ancient world. Even the mightiest empires eventually decline, and with the fall of the Achaemenid Empire, the legendary Persian postal system, the Angarion, also faced its decline. Empire's end. What happened to this marvel of ancient communication when the vast dominion it served crumbled under the weight of new powers? The ultimate downfall of the Achaemenid Empire came with the conquests of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BCE, as Alexander's Macedonian and Greek armies swept across Persia, defeating Darius III and seizing the imperial capitals. The centralized authority that maintained the Angarion fractured, the very backbone of the postal system, the royal road, the relay stations, and the imperial decree that funded and protected it began to unravel. A mainstream historical fact, Alexander the Great, recognizing the immense value of the Persian postal system, actually adopted and adapted elements of the Angarion for his own vast empire. He understood that rapid communication was essential for controlling his newly conquered territories. However, his empire was short-lived, and upon his death, it fractured into several Hellenistic kingdoms, the Diadochi, none of which fully maintained the scale and efficiency of the original Achaemenid network. Without the singular, centralized power of the great king to enforce its maintenance and provide its resources, the system naturally decayed. Relay stations would fall into disrepair, roads would become less maintained, and the disciplined corps of couriers would disband or be absorbed into smaller, localized services. The sheer expense and logistical complexity of the Angarion required a unified, wealthy empire to sustain it, a structure that no longer existed in the immediate aftermath of Alexander's conquests. The decline wasn't necessarily immediate or total. Some elements might have persisted locally, serving individual satraps or kingdoms for a time, but the vast intercontinental network that had once astonished the world slowly faded into disuse and memory. A testament to the fact that even the most advanced infrastructure needs a powerful, consistent force behind it. A quirky tidbit, imagine. A retired Persian postman, years after the fall of the empire, perhaps tending a small vineyard. He'd occasionally see a local messenger struggling with a heavy scroll, taking weeks to cover a fraction of the distance he once ran in a day. He'd just shake his head, perhaps wistfully remembering the glory days of the Angarion, when messages flew across continents and a man could run 150 miles without socks, all for the glory of the great king. Simpler, faster times. Historians still argue whether the decline of the Angarion was solely a consequence of the empire's political fragmentation, or if the system also faced internal challenges or inefficiencies that contributed to its eventual demise. Was it simply a casualty of war, or was it inherently unsustainable in the long term? It was likely a direct consequence of the political upheaval, as the system was so intrinsically linked to the centralized power of the Achaemenid state. Regardless, the fall of the empire marked the end of an era for the legendary Persian postman. His unparalleled endurance no longer harnessed by the vast, interconnected world he once helped to sustain, though the Achaemenid Empire eventually fell, and its famed postal system declined. The core ideas and principles of the Angarion did not vanish. Instead, they formed a crucial part of a powerful legacy: modern postal systems. The concept of a rapid, reliable, state-sponsored communication network, pioneered by the Persians, has echoed through millennia, shaping how messages are delivered in our world today. Your mail carrier, with all their technology, owes a surprising debt to that ancient postman. The most direct line of influence comes through subsequent empires. As we mentioned, Alexander the Great recognized the genius of the Angarion and adapted it. Later, the Roman Empire developed its own highly efficient postal service, the cursus publicus, which borrowed heavily from the Persian relay system, and the Mongol Empire's yam system, while perhaps less formalized, also employed vast networks of relay stations for rapid communication across Eurasia. The idea of staged delivery for speed was proven effective and adopted by successors. A mainstream historical fact: the modern concept of a standardized, government-operated postal service, capable of rapid and reliable delivery over long distances, has its fundamental roots in the Achaemenid Angarion. While technologies changed from footrunners to horses, carriages, trains, and planes, the core organizational principle of relay stations, efficiency, and imperial later national sponsorship remained remarkably consistent, even beyond direct lineage. The Persian postman's legacy is evident in the very values we associate with postal services: speed, reliability, and dedication to duty. The idea that neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, or gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds has become an enduring motto, symbolizing the unwavering commitment of postal workers worldwide. Cultural ideal of diligence transcends millennia. Consider the vast networks of modern mail delivery, from local postmen covering their routes daily to international express couriers jetting across continents. While technology has drastically altered the mechanics, the underlying goal, to move information or goods swiftly and dependably from sender to recipient, is precisely what the Angarian achieved, albeit with raw human and animal power. Quirky tidbit: imagine a modern mail truck speeding down the highway with a tiny, stylized image of a barefoot Persian postman running alongside it in the rearview mirror, a subtle nod to the ancient inspiration, or perhaps a postal worker, tired after a long shift, unknowingly channeling the endurance of their Persian predecessors. It's a fun way to connect the daily grind of modern logistics to the legendary feats of antiquity. Historians still argue whether the legend of the Persian postman, particularly Herodotus's famous quote, influenced later postal systems purely as an inspirational ideal, or if practical knowledge and organizational blueprints were directly transmitted across cultures and centuries. Was it soft power of inspiration or a hard transfer of logistics? It was likely a blend, with the inspiring reputation solidifying the practical utility of the relay system. Regardless, the Persian postman who could run 150 miles without socks left an indelible mark on history, not just as an athlete of impossible endurance, but as the conceptual ancestor of the vast, intricate communication networks that bind our world together, delivering everything from crucial documents to your last online shopping order. As our incredible journey through the Achaemenid Empire's communication network draws to a close, it's time to reflect on the ultimate meaning of the Persian postman's extraordinary feats. We've seen the sheer scale of his endurance, the ingenious, a system that supported him, and the profound impact he had on a vast empire. Now, as the echoes of his pounding footsteps fade into the stillness of your night, let's consider his enduring legacy, the power of human spirit, the story of the Persian postman. Running 150 miles without socks across unforgiving terrain isn't just about ancient logistics or imperial power. It's about what the human body and mind are capable of when pushed to their limits, driven by purpose and discipline. It speaks to a raw, primal form of excellence, achieved through sheer grit and resilience. In an age before specialized equipment or advanced sports science, these individuals embodied peak human performance. Think about the mental fortitude required, the loneliness of the long road, the physical pain, the constant threat from nature and bandits, the unwavering focus on the message. These were not just physical challenges, but profound tests of character. The postman's dedication to his appointed rounds wasn't merely a job. It was a deeply ingrained sense of duty, a commitment to a cause larger than himself, a mainstream historical fact, the concept of physical and moral excellence. Arete in Greek was valued in many ancient societies. The Persian couriers, with their blend of physical prowess and unwavering loyalty, would have been seen as embodying these virtues, serving as a powerful example of human capacity and dedication within their culture. This story serves as a powerful reminder that while technology can accelerate and amplify human endeavors, it cannot replace the fundamental drive and resilience of the individual. Our modern world thrives on instant communication, but it's built on the foundations laid by those who achieved the impossible with nothing but their own bodies and an iron will. The spirit of the ultramarathoner, the relentless explorer, the dedicated public servant, it all echoes in the legend of the Persian Postman. A quirky tidbit. Imagine trying to convince a modern person to try a Persian Postman. Fitness challenge. All right, no shoes, no socks, 150 miles across a desert. Deliver this scroll. Ready, go? They'd probably just stare at you bewildered and call for help. It highlights how radically different our concept of effort and endurance has become, making the ancient feat even more impressive. Historians still argue whether the individual experiences of these couriers were primarily defined by hardship and suffering, or if they derived a profound sense of purpose and pride from their vital role in sustaining such a vast empire. Was it a grueling burden or a glorious calling? It was likely a mixture, but their enduring legacy points to a deep wellspring of human spirit. Regardless, the Persian Postman, running his 150 miles without socks, stands as a timeless symbol of what humans can achieve through discipline, dedication, and an unshakable will to deliver. His footsteps, though silent now, echo across time, reminding us of the extraordinary power of the human spirit. As the sun sets on our extraordinary tale, the image of that tireless Persian postman fades into the stillness of ancient history. We bring our journey to a gentle close. We've marveled at his impossible endurance, the ingenious system that supported him, and the profound impact he had on a vast empire. Now, as the ambient hum of your modern world takes over, let the echoes of his relentless footsteps softly lull you into a deep, well-deserved sleep. You can almost feel the phantom wind rushing past his ears, the grit of the ancient road beneath. His bare feet, the steady thump of his heart, each beat a testament to unwavering dedication. He wasn't just a messenger. He was a living conduit of imperial power, a human bridge connecting disparate lands, an embodiment of the very will of the great king. His singular focus on delivery, regardless of obstacles, defines an era when human effort was the ultimate. Technology, the very air around you, now still and calm, seems to hold a whisper of his enduring spirit. His story isn't about the grand victories of armies or the intricate diplomacy of courts. It's about the quiet, relentless heroism of the individual, pushing beyond conventional limits for a purpose greater than himself. It reminds us that immense achievements are often built upon the countless unseen efforts of dedicated individuals. Remember the paradox of his minimalism. No socks, minimal gear, yet maximal performance. It's a powerful counterpoint to our often over-equipped lives, suggesting that true strength often lies not in what we possess, but in the raw, untapped potential of our own bodies and spirits. He was the ultimate proof that sometimes fewer distractions lead to greater focus, greater achievement. So, as you draw your blankets closer, feel the comforting stillness of your room and let your own modern comforts settle around you. Spare a quiet thought for that Persian postman. His dusty, tireless journey across an ancient world, driven by a commitment that spanned continents, left an indelible mark. His legacy is etched not just in history books, but in the very idea that a message once sent must reach its destination, come what may. Allow your mind to drift now, letting go of any lingering thoughts of impossible distances or ancient challenges. Embrace the peaceful calm of your space. Let the soft background hum of modernity gently guide you towards a deep, restorative slumber. The world outside, in its ceaseless rush, carries on, echoing the ancient past, but for now, your journey through history has reached its quiet, dream-filled conclusion. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Sweet dreams.